So, gentlemen and ladies, please forgive my mask. We are recording this on NBA draft night, and I am firmly behind the red, white, and blue of my hometown local basketball team. My name, of course, is Craig Lagans. I am joined by my stalwart co-hosts, Dan Calachico and Mark Go-Go Thompson. And this is a chance for us to take away, strip the colored confines in which we find ourselves now, to return to a time where things were kinder and gentler and in black and white. Back when there was wrestling in all 50 states, packed with people from all shapes, sizes, and colors, not observing social distancing laws. Back when titles were called belts. Back when medical facilities were called hospitals. And back when sports entertainment was, indeed, professional wrestling. We're going to go back in time this week in wrestling history to November 13th. A big day here locally in Philadelphia because a fledgling independent wrestling promotion was just getting started, but they scored a major coup in their wrestling card in November 13th, 1993, with ECW's first November to Remember.
Yes!
And it marked the day. It not only did it put kind of ECW in the map, but it's the first time that Paul Heyman, who we know him now, actually started calling in some favors. And he wanted to get his ECW, his promotion off the ground, and he already had the brain trust of and working under the tutelage of the great Eddie Gilbert. But in order to get ECW some real recognition, especially among indie and then the newsletters and the dirt sheets, as we called it back then, this was pre-internet, and to get a buzz going, he called in some favors. So appearing in ECW in this small little arena at the corner of Swanson and Rittner, a bingo hall, if you will, he had one of his local guys, the Sandman, go up against Jim Neidhart, who made his first, last, and only appearance in ECW. And also for his main event, he combined two of the guys that were already making a name for themselves in ECW. One, an independent wrestler that he brought in on a great fan favorite, Sabu, and another wise veteran that gave them credibility, Terry Funk, and put them together in a tag team. So you had on one side, Terry Funk and King Kong Bundy went up against Sabu and Road Warrior Hawk.
Yes.
And that
I don't remember that match.
Yes, this was Paulie calling in every favor he knew. So your main event was Sabu and Road Warrior Hawk against Terry Funk and King Kong Bundy. Bundy, who hadn't wrestled in 2 years at that point, came out to a massive fanfare. Obviously, not that far. Growing up in Atlantic City, it wasn't that far a jaunt for him. But Road Warrior Hawk showing up was a huge, got a lot of people buzzing and kind of put ECW not so much on the map, but got a lot of people talking. And what created such a buzz was the main event talent, the mainstream talent that appeared on this tiny indie show in this tiny little bingo hall in Philadelphia. So you had one half of the greatest tag team of all time, one half of the Hart Foundation, and the main event of WrestleMania 2, all in one show. And that put ECW's November to Remember. That would become an annual thing, and ECW would kind of put everything in that one November card, and that almost became their WrestleMania, because November to Remember in ECW history had some of the most iconic moments, not only in ECW history, but in professional wrestling. Also, November. I'm sorry to cut you off, because when I was talking about that card, you got really excited. Were you there?
No. I just, it just ended up actually being on the network.
Okay.
And that was the few events that I never got to see personally. You always see the VHS tapes that they'd advertise on the ECW, and you were always like, don't forget, you can get November Remember '93, and I was like, oh man, I wish I had seen that.
Yeah.
And here it is now, like 10 million years later, and I don't have to pay $20 in shipping and handling.
Even better. And to go back to our previous to a podcast that we did earlier about that subject, because there's no more pay-per-view, because of the network, there's no more revenue from the pay-per-view. Lots of wrestlers would get their big paycheck after the pay-per-view and the pay-per-view rental, and the subsequent showing of that, and the tape sales from said pay-per-view would also put money in the wrestler's pocket. Since that's all gone, thanks to the network, that would get
Brutal.
Makes wrestlers want to look for other sources of income.
I remember when the CM Punk WWE split was happening, and I remember him mentioning in that podcast he did with Colt Cabana, him mentioning to Triple H or Vince, like, okay, so you started the network, you're going to kill the pay-per-view, so where's our extra revenue coming from? And everybody, there was way too many people at the time. I find this ironic. There's way too many people at the time criticizing him for that comment, talking about, oh, money. And now that we're in 2020, it's like, oh, it's not so goddamn funny now, is it?
Yeah.
Like, they're getting fired for going on Twitch, but like 4 years ago, you were like, FCM Punk and the money, man.
Yeah. Well, the WWE Network, what it did was, while it did revolutionize, make it easier for fans to, like Mark, to go back and look at old matches. It totally took away the pay-per-view aspect of it, and then the videos and the revenue stream that went with it.
I've always said, and I will say on record, and I'm saying this right now. I know it's been 5 years, 6 years since the network's been on the air. And I know it's $9.99, and I know I've said this for a while, but I expected a price increase someday. I expect a price increase, and I'm going to say this on record: I don't mind, because more revenue goes. I know it's trying to. I don't mean during a pandemic, but for $9.99, the amount of information and stuff I have on there is insane.
Yeah.
So I expect 14, 20 someday. And I will gladly go, here you go, because I know you're evil, Vince, and I'm not allowed to like you, and I don't like you, but as far as availability, here. You still have talent to pay. Here's my money. That was my sidebar. That's all.
Okay.
I was going to say, I at least pay 20 for like the current stuff in the vault. Like,
absolutely.
That's gross to say, like, because I feel like I'm not like I'm ripping Vince off after how many years of $50 for.
No, I'm not worried about ripping Vince off.
But the wrestlers, I agree with you. Like,
that's what I'm talking about.
Give them some revenue.
Yeah.
I would totally agree with you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Back to that guy.
Staying on this date, unfortunately, still the saddest day in professional wrestling for me occurred 15 years ago, November 13th. 38 years old in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I lost a man that wearing on this shirt in his honor.
Oh my God!
The death of Eddie Guerrero occurred November 13th, 2005. Still a sad day. I remember my girlfriend at the time. She went to the gym, and she's got a heart monitor on there, and she saw watching CNN.
Oh yeah.
The tracker came on the bottom, and her heart rate skipped up to 120 because she couldn't believe it. And she was only a fan of Eddie because of me. So she was the one who told me that. And again, this is pre-internet, so I didn't find this out until I got to work, until I saw it was reported on other outlets, actual mainstream media outlets, that it happened.
She didn't happen to sleep over your house, did she, Craig?
We were living together, so yeah.
I'm sorry. I had to get one reference in, so that was for Craig.
Yes.
That was just,
But
I'm sorry.
back to the saddest day of my life. That's how I found out about Eddie. And he was my favorite wrestler at the time, and he was poised to win another world championship later on that month, at Survivor Series against Batista, and that would have been his second. As it is, he only had the one title reign that he got over Brock, and it's still one of the biggest, loudest pops anyone has ever seen or heard.
My personal Eddie Guerrero story is I'm very proud to be able to say this. I had nothing to do with this match. I just mean I was proud I was there for this.
Mhm.
There's no footage of it that exists. You'd have to take my word for it. But with the talent, you probably won't doubt me.
Mhm.
It was a December 1998 WCW House Show. Craig, you were probably there at the Spectrum.
Yes.
And the semi-main event, because the main event was Bam Bam and Ric Flair, and Ric Flair missed his
Yeah.
plane ride,
plane
so
ride,
Scott
his
Hall
flight,
fought him instead.
Yeah.
Scott Hall was at a house show in '98. It's so weird to say, but anyway, the semi-main event was Horseman with Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit
Hmm.
Oh,
versus Chris Jericho and Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, that's it, Mark.
Oh my God.
It was probably 10 minutes,
Hmm.
and 5 minutes of it, and 4 minutes was them yapping,
Yeah.
and
Oh
the
my
6
God.
minutes was some of the fastest tag team
Oh.
you've ever seen. It was such a great match that I didn't care, nor do I remember how the main event between Bam Bam and Scott Hall went, and those two were a legend.
I
Oh.
had left right after that match, Dan, because I made it a point to see any of the ECW guys, especially Eddie, whenever they came back to Philly,
Yeah.
because I was at Eddie's first match for WCW at the Civic Center, and his first match in Philly after he left ECW, and it was the opening bout of a WCW card, and the first match was Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Benoit. And
Wow.
the place went nuts when they came out, and they allowed ECW chant throughout their whole match. It wasn't one of their best. They only gave him 5 minutes.
Yeah, but it was fantastic. 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I think Eddie might even hurt his arm on something on a little because they were just kind of going through the motions with him and he and Benoit.
Probably.
Yeah.
But Eddie and Chris did that spot where Eddie, got pushed by Benoit, and he got on his knees and crawled to Chris Jericho and hugged him.
Yeah,
Just a personal matter that has nothing to do with wrestling. Matt just said, "Kitty."
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Amber makes her appearance this evening.
Amber is she has an appearance fee. That's why she can't appear on
Yeah,
camera.
yes. She will decide if she wants to forgo the fee, but we cannot push Miss Amber.
She is her own entity like Beyonce.
I tried to play with her like a kitty at your house, and you told me no. So that's how I know. I was playing with her with the light off my watch, and she was doing a cat thing, and you were like, "Can't stop it." I was like, "Okay, I'm sorry. I thought she was a cat, you asshole."
She is a cat, you asshole. I also know that when she sees a light that she can't catch, things get broken.
He's broken.
Yes, she needs to.
It was like a dad telling his son, "Knock it off." I was like, "Okay, I'm sorry."
I learned that the hard way, though. She needs to play with tangible things. If you make her chase something that's not there,
Oh, is this your house? Fuck your house.
I don't get any sleep. The furniture pays for it. So,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You didn't know, and but yes. So, and that's the Amber portion of the wrestling historian.
HIAC, it's Helen and Cat Talk Radio.
It's Helen and Amber cares.
HIAA.
HIAA. On November 15th, is also a big day. We talked about the network, Dan, and how you can watch old matches from other federations. November 15th, 1989 was one of my favorite cards of that year, one of my favorite cards of all time. It was the NWA Clash of Champions. And of all places, the RPI Fieldhouse in Troy, New York.
Random place.
Again, with random places, but it had a card for match, one of the best cards ever, and the crowd was incredibly hot. The main event I don't know what to talk about first, the undercard match or the main event. I'll go with the undercard match because it was an angle that started between the Midnight Express and the Dynamic Dudes, Shane Douglas and Johnny Ace.
That's
Now,
it.
both tag teams were faces at that point because Midnight Express had turned face because they lost the NWA Tag Team title to the Road Warriors. But the Dynamic Dudes were the new babyface tag team. So Jim Cornette was seen advising the Dudes while kind of neglecting the Midnight Express. So in this match, Jim Cornette was going to be in a neutral corner. And so he wouldn't take any sides with the Midnight Express or the Dynamic Dudes. The problem was there were two face tag teams, but the Dynamic Dudes were booed unmercifully from the
Yep.
time they came out to this Truro, New York smart crowd. To every time they put any type of offense on the Midnight Express, the fans booed. Yet whenever Stan came in or there was some type of chicanery, the fans cheered. The ending, obviously, well known. Bobby Eaton came in with a chain. It got knocked out of his hand. Jim Cornette, while the referee's back was turned, came up, picked up the chain, admonished Bobby, threw the chain out of the ring, told Johnny Ace rather, go kick his ass. As soon as Johnny Ace's back was turned, Jim Cornette hit Johnny Ace on the back of the head with a racket that Gordon Soley called a howitzer shot.
Oh, it was so loud, man.
Yes, echoed throughout the whole RPI Fieldhouse. Commentary by Jim Cornette and commentary by Jim Ross and Gordon Soley, the two greatest announcers of all time, were calling this match. And the place went nuts. So Midnight Express turned heel, but were cheered throughout. And you could see the fans. If you watch this Clash of Champions 9 again, watch the crowd stand up and cheer at the Midnight Express turning heel and winning and beating the Dynamic Dudes.
Magnificent.
But the main event that night.
Oh, we're not done yet.
Oh, we're not done. If you thought that was cool, the main event was the blow off, the final match, ending the feud between the NWA Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair and his arch nemesis, the returning Terry Funk, in an I Quit match that went 28 minutes and featured, and I counted 37 chops by Ric Flair on the chest of Terry Funk. They went up and down through the outside, inside, everywhere. And when the Rick put on the figure 4 leg lock on Terry Funk, and then Terry Funk of all people, with Tommy Young holding the microphone, that yes, I quit, ending their feud in one of the greatest matches on national TV I've ever seen. Yeah, go.
I mentioned off air that in March, because I never told Mark this, that I started there's a list on Reddit that if you ask me, I'll send it to you. That lists every single event that's on the WWE Network in chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to start in March when everything started falling apart to start the first show I went to in person, which was Halloween Havoc 89 at the Philly Spectrum.
I lost you.
To whenever I wanted. And
God damn it.
What I just watched this match and it holds up.
The Ric Flair Terry Funk match, the Ric Flair Terry Funk I Quit match, undoubtedly the most physical of their feud, their brief feud, which only started 3 months earlier.
Yeah.
And only had, this is only their second singles match.
What? Ever?
Yeah, because the first one was his comeback match at the Great American Bash that had Great Muta interfering, and then Sting helping out Rick, and that went to their tag team match at Halloween Havoc, and finally their their blow off. They were supposed to have won a Clash of Champions. That was Dick Slater, and Funk had a staph infection, and that's when he came out with the plastic bag.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then they had the Halloween Havoc tag team match, and this was their blow off match, the I Quit match. So this is only their second singles match ever from the feud that started at the Clash of Champions, where Flair regained the title from Steamboat.
And let me just say, Terry was not terrible. It was pretty good at commentary.
Terry was damn good at commentary.
I just think he hated it and he wanted to wrestle. That's why he left and went to wrestle elsewhere. But he was great at commentary. To see wrestlers push him around and him kind of get that face like, who the hell do you think you're pushing around, son?
Yeah, yeah. Or even Funk's Grill. Hello, you simple-minded people out there.
Yes.
Craig, I did want to say one thing.
Yes.
You ruin the Ric Flair chop drinking game by nailing how many chops were in the match. It's okay. It's not your fault. You're not used to the Ric Flair chop drinking game. I know you're not a drinker.
No.
But now everyone knows that they're going to get to 37 and they're going to have to quit.
I could be wrong though. I counted this back in 1990 when I rewatched it. So that number could be off. So you can still play your Ric Flair drinking game, chop drinking game, but if you're going to do it, the Ric Flair Terry Funk I Quit match is the one to do it. And
isn't that a fun? If you had to imagine a wrestling drinking game, don't you think that's a winner?
A good one.
That's one. I also have one quick aside. Missy Hyatt had her own drinking game. They'd watch in a match in the back, and Missy Hyatt made a drinking game of how many times Lex Luger touched his balls during a match. True story. So apparently it was enough to have a drinking game.
Is there a drinking game on how many times we can Missy Hyatt said something stupid when she was on mic?
That's even more of a drinking game.
Yeah, I'd be an alcoholic.
Yes.
I'd pay for those commercials.
This just in, the Sixers
Yeah,
picked Tyrese Maxey from shooting guard from Kentucky, which is not the guy I wanted.
Super familiar with his work. He seems like a great pick.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Tyrese Maxey, I wanted Terrell Tyler. I wanted Desmond Bain. I'm hoping they're off the board. But yeah, so Tyrese Maxey is a 76er, folks. I apologize for my
No, that's
getting
okay.
distracted.
Trust the process.
I am trusting the process. That's a problem. But back to Wrestling Historian.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
November 16th, 1987. This was a very interesting day at an interesting place. November 16th, 1987. The WWF had a Legends Battle Royal in, of all places, the Meadowlands in New Jersey, New York, New Jersey. But the names that they had in this, this was a WWF Legends Battle Royal.
Yes.
And it featured the Nick Bockwinkel.
Yes.
Sailor Art Thomas. Gino Brito, who was Dino Bravo's best friend. Bobo Brazil. Chief J. Strongbow. Arnold Skoland. Ed Carpentier. Al Costello from the Kangaroos. Pat O'Connor. The Crusher. Pedro Morales. Killer Kowalski. Tony Gurria. Gene Kiniski. And it was won. The Battle Royal was won by a 72-year-old Lou Thez.
You tell Lou no.
Yes, exactly. At your own peril.
Yeah,
But
even at 72. Lou, we want you to lose. Excuse me?
no. But yeah, a 72-year-old Lou Thez who could stretch pretty much any of the current roster back then. But these names, none, I'd say about 3 of them ever wrestled in the WWF, but none of those other people that I mentioned ever set foot in a WWF ring. They were all NWA and AWA legends, but they called it a WWF Legends Battle Royal. again, held in a WWF stronghold in the Meadowlands. Lanny Poffo, of all people, and speaking of people who, speaking of people who say things stupid, he cited, now one of the legends that I did mention that wasn't included was Lanny's father, Lanny and Randy Savage's father, Angelo Poffo. Angelo Poffo wasn't there. Lanny claims that it was Angelo not being in that battle royal that caused Randy Savage to eventually leave the WWF.
That makes sense.
Well, the battle royal was in 1987, and Savage didn't leave till 1995. So that's a hell of a long time to hold a grudge of not including your dad in the battle royal.
It is wrestling.
You plant the seed, Craig.
Okay.
No, I agree with you, but it is wrestling. I've heard worse. Looking at you, Bret Hart.
Craig, it's like you and I starting 2 weeks ago. 5 years from now, you'll leave the show because I was on it.
Yeah, I got you. But this Legends Battle Royal, again, all those incredible legends, and they were all wrestling, and Pat O'Connor, Gene Kiniski, Lou Thez, Sailor R. Thomas, some of these guys were in their Killer Kowalski in their late 60s, early 70s, all wrestled in a Battle Royal.
Lou Thez still has one of my favorite quotes about Hulk Hogan, because there is that A&E wrestling special that
was
Steve Allen narrated. What was it?
Yeah.
What did you say?
It was complete and utter bullshit, but go ahead.
Yes. Oh no, it was totally kayfabe.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a kayfabe. It's a work shoot.
Mm-hmm.
But they interview journalists and wrestlers from the past, and one of the guys they are interviewing during the whole show is Lou Thez.
Mm-hmm.
And Lou Thez, where they're talking about the Hulk Hogan era, and he goes, Hulk Hogan can't drop a leg drop. My grandmother's been dead, and she could drop a better leg drop.
Yeah.
So whenever I reference my dead grandmother doing something better, I stole it from Lou Thez.
Of course.
Good. Mark.
Staying on this date, remember I mentioned November to Remember, and
I do
ECW
remember.
being it's November, so I would hope so. Well, November 15th, 1996, at ECW's latest November to Remember, not only did it have the long-awaited first match between Taz and Sabu, a match that they had teased for a year straight, but one of the matches also on there was Bubba Ray Dudley versus Devon Dudley.
Oh.
In a matchup of the future most decorated tag team in wrestling history. This in November to Remember also featured the debut of the BWO, the Blue World Order, and it was the farewell match of one of the guys we talked about on last week's Historian, who doesn't get enough credit as he did. Tuco Scorpio was leaving the ECW to go on to WWF as Flash Funk. And he said, I know what I'm supposed to do is do a job for the next motherfucker that comes out here. Well, I ain't doing it, and I ain't leaving. So they brought out JT Smith, and he got beat by, and they brought out Hack Myers, and Tuco beat him. But then they brought out Louis Spicolli, and he dropped Scorpio, and Scorpio did the job just like he said he wouldn't. And he was off, and Louis Spicolli got a standing ovation from the crowd at ECW Arena at November to Remember. Go.
All right. One, thank you for doing us the favor of mentioning the BWO, because you know that they're taking over. Also, seriously, is there a better, like, when you think about the top 5 ECW feuds, Taz, Sabu,
mm-hmm.
do you think that's one of your top 5, right? You're Craig. I'm asking you because you are the historian. Top 5.
Yes, most definitely, and for one simple reason, Mark. They didn't touch each other for an entire year.
Yeah.
That's how you book a feud.
There you go.
That's how you get any feud over. You want these two guys to fight each other? Make sure when they do it counts. So keep them away. Have them beat everyone else. You can have them in the ring at the same time. Even have a pull apart. But if they don't touch each other for a significant amount of time, in this case a full year, so when they do, it's a big effing deal.
Is that when he broke his neck, though?
No,
Okay.
he broke his neck against Chris Benoit, who hadn't.
Didn't Kaz break Sabu's neck?
No,
No.
No. Okay.
no. It was Chris Benoit did it,
Wow.
unfortunately, and it was the way Sabu landed.
I know he did, but it wasn't on purpose.
No.
Don't ever
No.
take.
Now, Tuchel broke Taz's neck on that botched pile driver.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, the time he broke his neck and walked into the hospital, and the hospital was like, "How did you get in here?" And he goes, "I walked." And they were like, "You shouldn't be walking." He goes, "Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I put one foot in front of the other. I walked in here."
Taz doing his Danny Hodge impression. Danny Hodge
Fattest dude on the planet.
was in a car that flipped over 12 times and landed in a lake. And Danny Hodge, with a broken neck, swam out from under the car, walked 4 miles to the hospital while holding his neck in place with his other hand, and to get to the hospital.
If we have a slow week, we should talk about wrestling injuries that people walked away with, whether it's in the ring or out of the ring. Because the one I just thought of when you mentioned that was Gary Hart in the plane crash with Buddy Colt.
Mm-hmm.
I won't go into that. I'll save that for that episode.
Yeah.
Love it.
That was November 16th in 1996. November 17th, that same year, 1996, Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden. But it was the debut. They had Survivors, is back when they were still doing Survivor Series teams, elimination bouts. But on the one side, you had Triple H, Goldust, Jerry Lawler, and Crush going against the team of Mark Merrow, Jake the Snake Roberts,
It's not getting better.
Barry Windham, who was the Widowmaker back then, and making his pay-per-view debut, third-generation superstar with one great hairdo and a thoroughly ridiculous outfit, Rocky Maivia.
Yowie wowie. That's the one he was the sole survivor for.
His debut.
Who else would you put over in that match?
Oh my God!
I'd put Rocky Maivia over. God.
Yes.
I'd put Static up first.
Yeah. November, and the main event, though, curious enough, Rocky Maivia was cheered that night, which would later go away. But the main event was Sid defeating Shawn Michaels for his first WWE title. And the fans cheered Sid and booed Michaels lustily during the match. So even the crowd, again, back to New York, up Northeast, were kind of smart. So just like they were booing the dudes in Troy, New York, they were booing Shawn Michaels, the face.
Is that Psycho Sid at that point?
That was Psycho Sid.
Sid's like such just something you would settle for.
Yeah.
Right?
Because when I'm watching old wrestling, Kelly will also make this. I'm like, why him? And I'm like, I get that sentiment, but Sid was fun to watch in ring. Don't ever put a microphone on him.
When?
Every time.
No, Sid was. Sid checked all the boxes of a WWF superstar that Vince salivated over.
Yeah,
Sid was in and out. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, the size, the look, the intensity. Could be a great heel and be a great guy. The fans, he could be your monster babyface.
He had good matches with Sting.
Yes, but the guy and everyone. It's not like everyone didn't warn him, and it's not like he wasn't upfront about it. He was a head case.
Yep.
But yet, this man had 2 world title reigns. He was in the main event at the Alamo Dome in front of 72,000 people, which is nothing to sneeze at. But at twice he was fired from the company for abruptly leaving during softball
I was
season.
gonna say, don't book him during softball season.
No, don't book him during the summer because you ain't gonna see him. But he was a guy that WWF made a ton of money with, and he put 2 world titles on him. But why you would put 2 world titles on a guy that looked good on a head case and not someone who could work like a Vader will always baffle me.
Comparing
And
the
don't
two
even
is like
start me up.
comparing the two is like comparing a bucket of crap and a
Yeah.
bucket of pudding. You're gonna eat the pudding.
yeah,
And you're eating that pudding on a roof. I know.
but I'll give you this analogy between when Sid was pushed in WCW over and Arn Anderson, because Sid can make you $1 million in one night, but after that you've seen him already. Arn Anderson can make you $1 million over 10 years because he's not an attraction. You put everything on Sid on one night, he'll make you a mint, but you've seen it already. And once that's over, what else can you do with Sid?
Well, like once again, I hate this. There's always that argument. Oh, you don't put a belt on someone that draws heat. Like, don't you do it to them for like even now? Like, can we just play the nowadays play book? Don't you owe it to someone that puts the heat on the product to give them a championship? I'm asking. I'm asking both of you individually. If someone is good enough to not need the belt, don't you think they deserve to have the belt in this day and age where you just kick the belt around like it's nonsense?
Yes.
Yeah, in this day and age, yes. Back in the day,
not
no.
96.
No.
Yes,
But-
I hear you.
1996.
And just to defend my Sid thing, Sid had, Sid was what Sid was what people think John Cena is.
Ugh.
People think John Cena has 5 moves and he doesn't do anything else, and they're wrong.
They are.
Same thing about Roman Reigns. They're completely wrong about Roman Reigns.
Awful.
Sid had 7 moves tops. He
I think
did
you're
them
giving
well. He
credit.
was big, bad, and dangerous to know. And he 10 minutes, you got 10 minutes out of him, it was over.
Yeah.
That's all you needed. I like Sid compacted. I like Sid for what Sid was. Do I think he's the greatest wrestler that ever lived? No, but when I'm playing the video game and I want to win a Royal Rumble, I pick Sid.
and Sid Udy was a gift from God because of the guy that was that big, that with that body and that look, the eyes, the intensity. Again, he can make you $1 million. He can sell out an arena for you. But
Yeah, you're right.
How many people in this millennium will snap their whole goddamn leg and wrestle after it's repaired?
yeah, that guy.
Sid.
Yeah.
Now look, I'm not taking his wrestling love away from him.
Mhm.
Don't ever take it like that.
Well, don't go over.
I'm just saying that he was. I don't know. You know what?
It doesn't go over his love of softball.
I'm
Don't
not
worry
gonna go
about it.
Yeah.
into
And
why Waylon Mercy was better than Sid Justice.
No, that's not true. Get out of here.
no, well, if you were to push a team like the Skyscrapers, though, you could have made something with them if they were in an era other than the Road Warriors, but that wasn't going to happen. Also, what makes Sid not so much a marketable commodity is because for all those muscles and all that look,
Dumber
the
than
guy-
a box of rocks.
and can get his ass kicked by anyone in a real fight. Ask Mike Graham, okay, or Arn Anderson.
The engine's running, but there's nobody behind the wheel.
Yes, and all those muscles, it's like when you work out, it's like, yeah, but, could you put them to use in a real fight? In Sid's case, no.
Nah.
No, you can't. So, that's our Sid segment.
Sidcast is over.
Sidcast. Turning to today in wrestling history, some big debuts. Going back to, I mentioned the Clash of Champions early. November 18th, 1992 was Clash of Champions 21. And what I remember, 2 things. One of the great match between, for the NWA Tag Team titles, it was Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes losing the tag team belts to Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas. And this was Ricky Steamboat, Shane Douglas, damn good team, but that all four of them, great matches. You had four of the best workers in the NWA at the time, and they did an amazing job in that match, making Shane Douglas one half of the NWA Tag Team Champions. This was 2 years after the Dynamic Dudes, so Shane teaming with Ricky Steamboat gave him some legitimacy, and his work with Steamboat and the main event tag team matches with him, and the fans got to see how good he really was, and not just how good he was, and compared to Johnny Ace, how much Johnny Ace sucked, but that this is a guy, if you pushed him singularly, he could do something. So it was that win, giving him the NWA Tag Team title with Ricky Steamboat, that gave him and his connection with Paul Lee, who was on the booking committee then, that when Paul Lee got ECW, he wanted Shane Douglas to be his champion, and it worked because fans knew how good, smart fans knew how good Shane Douglas was, and that would carry on to his work in ECW. But the biggest thing from that Clash of Champions, we talk about great debuts, usually when somebody says, I'm bringing in a mystery partner, that means the mystery partner is someone that had wrestled in the territory before, was coming back, or was a wrestler that was known from another federation that's making their debut. But in this case, it was a handicap match. Tony Atlas, the Barbarian, and Cactus Jack were going up against the WCW Heavyweight Champion Ron Simmons and a mystery partner. Well, when Ron Simmons came to the ring with his mystery partner, no one knew who the hell he was. Even Jesse Ventura on commentary saying, who is this guy? Well, this guy just went out and was performing moves that had never been seen before on American television. Flying over the top rope, the suicide dive that you call it now, that you see in every single AEW match, but seen for the first time in WCW. And the very first 450 splash that Tuco Scorpio performed on Tony Atlas to win the match. And that was the greatest debut of an unknown wrestler I've ever seen in my life.
That's awesome.
Because I didn't know who he was. Jim Ross didn't know who he was.
That's awesome.
The fans didn't know who he was. And after the match, Ron Simmons said, this is Tuco Scorpio. And that put him on the map.
Everybody knew who he was after that.
And after everyone knew who he was after that. So, and again, 4 years later, after WCW, and I just mentioned November 17th, he left ECW to go to the WWF. So in that 4 years, he went from WCW to debuting in WCW.
And then they debuted as Splash Punk.
And and then that's when they killed him. But his debut in professional wrestling was absolutely amazing because I'd never seen anything like it. And again, that was the first time I saw a dive to the outside. First time I'd ever seen a 450 splash. It's the first time these moves were ever seen on TV in America. And it was done by Tuco Scorpio. So that, again, I stand by the greatest debut of an unknown wrestler I've ever seen.
In 2016 or 17, Tuco wrestled in Nova. Nova Pro Wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, he still does that.
Yeah. Well, I hung out with him when he was in PWU. He was still wrestling. He was the PW Heavyweight Champion.
But he still does it like that.
Yeah.
He's not as quick as he used to be, but he still has that ability.
Yes. And a very favorable mention by Mick Foley in his book about Tuco being anatomically correct. You know what I'm talking about.
He got a big old...
Yes.
Yeah.
He's got big pants.
Pants.
Back November 18th. I'm sorry. Go.
No, real quick. I did want to say, when I was growing up, we would always watch Saturday Night Main Event, WCW.
Mm-hmm.
When Shane Douglas and Ricky Steamboat won the titles, I was super excited because I never seen Shane Douglas before. It was cool to see a young guy win with a veteran. But that also led me to find one of my favorite tag teams of all time, and a great feud with them. It's the Hollywood Blondes.
Yes.
So that bleeds into like one of the greatest tag teams of all time that they didn't think was going to work out. And I'm not trying to cut your wrestling historian off, but I love both of those teams. So like every week I would watch them, and I'd be like,
history.
I don't know who I want to win. How can I root for Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Shane Douglas and the Hollywood Blondes at the same time, even though they were both good and bad guys? Like, I'd never been torn in my wrestling career, like childhood, to root for villains. The Hollywood Blondes were just so good, though.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
just. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. The
You
Hollywood
didn't. You had
Blondes.
your finger up.
Yeah, and that's why I went to you. And the Hollywood Blondes, had it not been for Pillman's injury, I think would have been should have been their premier tag team. They were when they never lost the belts. Brian got injured, and they took the belts off them, and they broke them off, which is a bad idea. Bad idea booking wise. Good idea for Steve Austin's career, because he became the man that he was.
I respect you, Booker man.
But the Hollywood Blondes were the tag team in the 1990s, and they were a great tag team. And you were right to feel conflicted, because you have two teams and 4 guys that you want to root for. Speaking of Steve Austin, thank you for that segue, Go-Go, because I go back to today in wrestling history, 25 years ago, at ECW November to Remember 1995 in the ECW arena. Remember, we talked about, you just mentioned the Hollywood Blondes, and unfortunately Brian Pillman got hurt, and they had to take the WCW Tag Team Championship off of them. Steve Austin went single, and he broke up the Blondes. Steve Austin carved out his own singles career, culminating some great matches with, among other people, Ricky Steamboat, Barry Windham, WCW TV champion, part of the Dangerous Alliance, on his way to main event status until the Hulk Hogan effect happened.
God, those TV titles matches.
When he left and was fired via FedEx by WCW, and Paul Lee, calling in another favor, bringing in Steve Austin to ECW. Steve Austin finally got to be Steve Austin, say what's on his mind with no filters. His interviews, his promos on ECW were gold, absolute gold. Not only because he finally got to say what he and many fans felt about WCW, where the big boys play with each other, but he finally got to be himself. Well, his first match in ECW happened on this date, 25 years ago, November 18th, 1995, ECW's November to Remember. And superstar Steve Austin, not stunning, not stone cold, superstar Steve Austin, who came to the ring with Jesus Christ Superstar, in his ECW debut, lost to Mikey Whipwreck.
I was going to say, it's Mikey Whipwreck, right?
Yes, Go-Go, it's Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah.
Pinned him, which set off another series of great promos by Steve Austin, talking about how damn good I am. My first match, I thought I dropped the damn ball. Steve Austin only had 2 matches in ECW the whole time he was there. Lost both of them, one to Mikey Whipwreck and one to the Sandman. But his career was set because he got called up to the WWF to be the ringmaster, and the rest is history.
But it was.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, man.
Somebody go.
Go.
Well, I was going to say, it wasn't like okay, they pulled him up to be the ringmaster, but someone had to have seen backstage like the chaos that he was brewing. That would have been what is Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Like that's the real story, right?
The real story is that the WWF is looking at ECW all the time and stealing most of their ideas, because this is the infancy of the Attitude Era. And so you saw, Sandman walking in the ring, smoking cigarettes, chugging a beer on ECW TV, Singapore canes, tables, chairs, chair shots to the head. And next thing you know, there's that same thing on WWF and, bleeding and all that stuff. So the WWE was looking at ECW as well as WCW for ideas. So yes, all that's how Steve got hired from what they saw on ECW. But 25 years ago was Steve Austin's first match right here in Philadelphia.
I was going to say, I just wanted to point out that he lost those matches by his own choice.
Yes.
He was like, we're going to put you over. And Steve was like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
What am I beating him for? He's here. I'm not here
Mhm.
forever. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to win the title. Paul was going to put the title on him night one.
Oh yeah.
And Steve was like, no, it makes no
Mhm.
sense. Why would you do that? And those promos are still unbeatable. What,
Yes, they
Mark?
are.
They were just buddies, though, right? Like he felt like he owed him a buddy championship, right?
Well,
No, well, he
yeah.
was, yeah, but he also wanted to put ECW on the map, and he did the same thing he did with Shane when Shane Douglas came in. He wanted to put the ECW belt on Shane because here was a guy that wrestling fans knew from the WCW, from the big leagues, coming in here and giving his federation some cred. And Steve Austin, who everyone knew how good he was in WCW, and just like they knew how good Shane Douglas was in WCW, was never given a shot. So we'll put the belt on him.
So you had your choice that night. You had your choice between Sabu, who was like the hardcore like legend,
Hmm.
and you had your choice between him and Shane Douglas, who Shane Douglas was a mouthpiece, and you picked Shane Douglas. You picked Shane Douglas because he was a mouthpiece,
Yeah, well, Shane
right?
Douglas was in the ECW way before Sabu was.
But like I'm saying, like,
Hmm.
like you had your choice between those two guys,
Hmm.
and you picked someone that Paulie liked because he ran his mouth.
And he was good in the
Correct?
ring. No.
Who are we talking
No,
about?
no, no, don't, no, 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 no. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Don't ever take. I argue that Shane Douglas might be one of the most underrated professional wrestlers in the history of professional wrestling.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that, like, you have your choice between what the fans in ECW wanted was the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal,
Yeah.
table covered in barbed wire.
Yeah.
I would argue they understood. I've been to a couple. I was at a bunch of those shows. They also appreciated good wrestling. The
Yeah.
smart ones.
Okay.
Most of
And
the
I'm
and
Billy
just,
morons were like, blood.
I'm
but it goes back to your earlier point. Sabu was so over that he didn't need a belt.
right.
So you putting the belt on him wouldn't have hurt his standing in the hierarchy of and the fans. He could still main event. He still did main event in ECW without a belt.
Boy, did
So
he.
yeah. Speaking of debuts, staying on this date, November 18th, 8 years ago. And get this, at Survivor Series, are you noticing a trend here?
The
Either
Undertaker.
November to Remember or Survivor Series, but November 18th, 2012, after the final match between the triple threat between CM Punk, John Cena, and Ryback, of all folks.
Oh,
Ryback, who was introduced last, because he got the biggest pop, if you can believe that, at the time. But after the match, Ryback was attacked by three men in all black garb wearing bulletproof vests and put him through a
shut up.
table. So, to this date, 8 years ago today, was the debut of Sierra, Hotel, India, Echo, Lima, Delta, Shield.
Mm.
It was the last time wearing turtlenecks was cool.
Yeah,
I make
well,
turtlenecks cool every winter, baby. I don't know what you're talking about.
exactly. Tell that
Well,
to
I don't
Bob.
know if you. I'm just saying those black mock turtlenecks that they were wearing. They looked like security guards. I'm just.
That's what I thought they were. But they traded them in for bulletproof vests and started
They did.
an epic run of one of the greatest factions in WWE history and ushered in the three-man team that spawned the Wyatt family and the New Day. And picking up on the trend, you're talking about six-man tag teams. If it were not for the Freebirds, there would not be a Shield. So
Free rule, baby.
always.
I will also say this, that when that ended and they broke up, that's the last time that I really popped
Hmm.
for a wrestling angle or show.
That was good.
Yeah. But those three men, Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, all three would be world champions. All three would hold multiple titles. All three would be tag team champions. All three did what was designed for them, was to get over as a group and as individuals, and it worked, more or less for all three of them. And still in Roman Reigns' case, where he's 8 years later, he is the man,
God, it's been
still on
8
top,
years. Wow.
and the only man in WWE history who was main evented 5 straight WrestleManias is Roman
Oh.
Reigns. Okay, and no one can say that, not even Hogan.
Oh,
So,
I don't hate.
8 years ago today was the debut of the Shield, and that,
Ow.
gentlemen and ladies, is the wrestling
Before
story.
if you have anything else to say, this is where we're closing it out.
No, I'd love to close it out. Once again, Craig, thank you for your fountains of knowledge and your wealth of just generosity sharing with us.
It's the only place I'm wealthy, Mark.
The unfortunate part is that November to Remember only comes once a year.
Yeah.
That's, I think, my least favorite part. Well, I'm only looking forward to December to Dismember.
No, stop it. This is where we end the show, Craig.
Okay. So you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter at Craig Ligons. That's CraigLiggeons.
Mr. Thompson, where can people follow you?
Oh, just give me the @GOTHOMPSON. That's Go Thompson. Find me Instagram, Twitter, and I won't give it out the other one because, I do that often enough.
Arm Drag PC, I did it for you. I can remember things. Follow me on Twitter at Dan93. Let's see if I can remember it this week, because last week and on the Away the Puck podcast, I screwed this up. You can find us at HIAC Talk Radio on Twitter and Facebook. Go to VOCNation.com for our podcast and all of the podcasts on the VOC Nation Radio Network. Do me a favor. Those words I just said, if you go to your podcast app on your smartphone, you can type in VOC Nation Radio Network, listen to them on your cell phone. On your smartphone, your phone. The thing that has more power than the lunar lander in the 767. So yeah, next week there is no wrestling. There's only Nerd Herders. Nerd Herders is back for our November episode. I think it's also Thanksgiving. So it'll be me, it'll be Damien, it'll be Foxy, it'll be Craig. Nerd Herders returns, episode 5. So join us there. YouTube.com/DanLaw83 or Twitch. Wherever you're watching now, go to the opposite. For Go Thompson, for Craig Ligons, I'm the above average comedian, Dan Calchico. We'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.